Victoria had been taking salsa classes for 3 months now, but it wasn't until Susan became her private instructor that she truly understood what people meant by feeling the music. The studio was empty except for the two of them. Late afternoon light filtered through the tall windows, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor. Victoria adjusted her dance shoes for the third time, trying to calm the butterflies that had taken up permanent residence in her stomach.
"Ready?"
Susan asked, her accent wrapping around the word like silk. Victoria nodded, not trusting her voice. Susan was everything Victoria wasn't: confident, graceful, commanding. She moved through the world like she owned every space she entered, her dark curls bouncing with each step, her presence filling the room. Victoria, by contrast, felt like she was constantly apologizing for taking up space, always second-guessing herself. But something about dancing made her brave. "Today, we work on the close embrace," Susan announced, moving to the center of the floor. "Salsa is about connection, about trust. You cannot dance with someone if you hold them at arm's length, see?" Victoria's heart hammered against her ribs. "Okay." Susan extended her hand, and Victoria took it. The instructor's palm was warm, her grip firm and reassuring. She pulled Victoria closer than they'd ever been during group classes, close enough that Victoria could smell her perfume, something with jasmine and vanilla. "Put your hand here," Susan guided Victoria's left hand to her shoulder.
"And I will place mine here."
Her right hand settled on Victoria's waist, fingers splaying across her hip. Victoria's breath caught. "Too close?" Susan asked, her dark eyes searching Victoria's face. "No," Victoria whispered. "It's perfect." The music started, a slow, sensual rhythm that seemed to pulse in time with Victoria's racing heart. Susan began to move, and Victoria followed, their bodies finding a synchronicity that felt almost dangerous in its intimacy. "That's it," Susan murmured. "Feel the music. Feel me. We move as one." They did. For those first few minutes, Victoria forgot about her self-consciousness, forgot about the world outside the studio. There was only Susan's hand on her waist, the heat of her body, the way their hips swayed in perfect harmony. "You're thinking too much," Susan said, her voice low. "Dance is not in the head. It's in the heart, in the body." "I can't help it," Victoria admitted.
"I'm always in my head."
Susan spun her out and then pulled her back in, this time even closer. Their faces were inches apart now. Victoria could see the flecks of gold in Susan's brown eyes, could feel her breath against her cheek. "Then let me lead you out of it," Susan whispered. The world narrowed to the space between them. Victoria's hand, which had been resting properly on Susan's shoulder, somehow found its way to the nape of her neck, fingers tangling in those dark curls. Susan's grip on her waist tightened, pulling her impossibly closer. They weren't dancing anymore. Not really. They were swaying, suspended in a moment that felt both eternal and fleeting. "Victoria," Susan said softly. "Is this okay?" Victoria should have said no. Should have stepped back, laughed it off, maintained the professional distance between student and instructor. But she'd spent her whole life doing what she should do, being who she should be. "Yes," she breathed. Susan's lips curved into a slow smile. "Good. Because I've been wanting to get this close to you since the first day you walked into my studio." "You have. See. You blush when you mess up the steps. Did you know that? Your whole face turns pink, and you bite your bottom lip like this," Susan demonstrated, and Victoria's knees nearly buckled. "I thought you didn't notice me," Victoria confessed. "There are so many other students, better dancers." "I don't care about better dancers," Susan interrupted, her thumb tracing small circles on Victoria's hip. "I care about dancers who feel the music, who aren't afraid to be vulnerable. You, Victoria, you dance like you're telling me secrets with every movement." "What secrets am I telling you now?" Susan leaned in, her lips brushing against Victoria's ear. "That you want this as much as I do." Victoria shivered. "Is this ethical? You're my instructor." "You can fire me," Susan said simply. "Find another teacher. Or—" She pulled back just enough to meet Victoria's eyes. "You can kiss me, and we'll figure out the rest later." Later. Victoria had spent her whole life planning for later, worrying about later, letting later stop her from living in the now. But here, with Susan's hands on her body and the evening light painting everything gold, later seemed very far away. She kissed her. Susan made a small sound of surprise that quickly melted into something else, something hungry and yearning. Her hands slid from Victoria's waist to the small of her back, pressing their bodies flush together. Victoria's fingers tightened in her hair, and Susan's other hand came up to cup her face, tilting her head to deepen the kiss. The music played on, forgotten. There was only this, the softness of Susan's lips, the way she tasted like coffee and mint, the feeling of finally surrendering to something Victoria had been denying for months. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Susan rested her forehead against Victoria's. "I've wanted to do that for so long," she confessed.
Why didn't you?
"Because I wasn't sure. Because I'm your teacher, and I didn't want to abuse that position. Because—" She hesitated. "Because you seemed scared of something. Of this, maybe. Of yourself." Victoria closed her eyes. I am. I've spent so long hiding who I am, trying to be what everyone expects. Taking these dance classes was the first thing I did just for me. And then you showed up, and suddenly it wasn't just about the dancing anymore." "No," Susan agreed. "It wasn't. I'm not very good at this," Victoria admitted. "At being brave. At knowing what I want and going after it." Susan pulled back, her hands coming up to frame Victoria's face. "Karina, you just kissed me. That's pretty brave." Victoria laughed, feeling some of the tension ease from her shoulders. "One brave moment doesn't make me a brave person." "No," Susan said. "But it's a start. And maybe—" She pressed a soft kiss to Victoria's lips. "Maybe I can teach you more than just how to dance. Maybe I can teach you how to be brave in other ways too. That's not really your job. It is if you want it to be. As your girlfriend, not your instructor." Victoria's eyes widened. "Girlfriend?" Susan grinned, suddenly looking almost shy, a look Victoria had never seen on her before. "Too fast." "No," Victoria said quickly. Then, more firmly, "No. It's perfect. You're perfect." "I'm not," Susan laughed. "I'm bossy and impatient and I have terrible taste in movies. But I like you, Victoria. I like the way you try so hard at everything. I like that you're scared but you do things anyway. I like that you trusted me enough to let me lead you." "I like you too," Victoria whispered. "So much it terrifies me." "Then be terrified. But don't let it stop you." Susan stepped back, extending her hand once more. "Dance with me. Really dance with me. No more holding back." Victoria took her hand. This time, when they moved together, it was different. The self-consciousness was gone, replaced by something raw and honest. Victoria let herself feel every point of contact between their bodies, let herself match Susan's intensity instead of shying away from it. "Better?" Susan asked. "Yes," Victoria said. And she meant it. They danced until the sun set and the studio grew dark, until the music ended and they were just swaying in silence. They danced until Victoria's feet hurt and her legs ached, but she didn't want to stop because stopping meant letting go, and she never wanted to let go of Susan. Eventually, though, they had to. Reality crept back in. The studio needed to be locked up. They both had lives to return to, responsibilities to attend to. "Come home with me," Susan said as they gathered their things. It wasn't a question, but it wasn't a demand either. It was an invitation. Victoria thought about all the reasons she should say no. It was too fast, too intense. She barely knew Susan outside of the studio. She had work in the morning. Her roommate would wonder where she was. But then she thought about the way Susan looked at her, like she was something precious and powerful all at once. She thought about the way dancing with her felt like coming home to a place she'd never been but had always been searching for. "Yes," Victoria said. Susan's smile could have lit up the entire city. They held hands as they walked to Susan's car, fingers intertwined. Victoria felt exposed, vulnerable, like she was wearing her heart on the outside of her body. But she also felt alive in a way she'd never experienced before. "No regrets," Susan asked as she unlocked the car. Victoria thought about it, really thought about it. She thought about the version of herself who had walked into that dance studio 3 months ago, closeted, scared, hiding. And she thought about who she might become with Susan beside her, brave, honest, free. No regrets, Victoria said firmly. Susan kissed her then, soft and sweet, in the middle of the parking lot with the streetlights flickering on around them. And Victoria kissed her back, no longer caring who might see, no longer afraid of what it meant. She was done hiding, done being afraid, done holding herself at arm's length from the life she wanted. The dance instructor had gotten too close during practice, and Victoria had let her. Had wanted her to. Had needed her to. And it was the best decision she'd ever made.